Welcome back to the channel. Like I said in the first video, for the moment I'm just going to kind of cover random stuff as it comes to mind. And today I was discussing some nutrition with somebody in regards to weight loss. And there's a lot of misinformation out there regarding nutrition and supplementation for weight loss. Everybody is trying to sell you a product or a diet or something. And so there's a lot of fad diets asking you to cut out all your carbs or cut out all your fat or only eat certain foods. And the reality is fad diets are not good for you. They're not sustainable. And dieting really isn't as complicated as they make it seem. Now, the basics of thermodynamics essentially state that 1 pound of stored body fat is 3,500 stored calories. Now, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a calorie counter, and yeah, you will plateau. And people get into this cycle where they cut calories, and what happens is your body gets efficient at doing more work on less calories. So then you plateau. And if you continue to try to cut calories, eventually you'll run out of calories to cut. That's not a good way to go. So it's not quite that simple, but it's a good way to start. Usually with my clients, we'll cut calories once or twice in the beginning, and then we switch to what a lot of people refer to as reverse dieting. And when you reverse diet, what you're doing is you're optimizing your metabolism. You're stabilizing your blood sugar, and you're dealing more with meal timing. So you're eating every 3 to 4 hours in small portions. You're exercising at key points during the day to get your metabolism to burn as high as possible all day long. And ultimately what you do is, by optimizing your metabolism, it starts to increase, and you end up needing more calories. So you'll start losing weight again by increasing your metabolism rather than cutting calories, and you'll reach a point where you'll plateau. And in this case, when you're reverse dieting, when you plateau, you add more calories, and then you'll start losing weight again, and then you plateau and you add more calories, and eventually you'll optimize and on a top end. And usually by the time you get to that point, you're hoping that you don't have to add any more calories because you'll be eating a ton of them. So reverse dieting gets you kind of up to that athletic level where you're losing weight, usually eating anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 calories depending on what your daily activity looks like. So anyways, I did want to share a couple of examples of how simple it can be. So I had a client back in 2005, and we sat down and talked about what her diet looked like and steps that we needed to move from where she was to where she wanted to be with her fitness. And one thing that she said to me was that she stopped at Starbucks and got a grande white mocha every day on the way to work. And that was incredibly important to her because psychologically that was how she prepared herself for her day, because she didn't like her job, she didn't like the people she worked with, and she needed that routine to maintain some semblance of sanity. So that was our first thing that we looked at and changed. For that week we made one change to her diet, and that was, for that week, she was going to change how she ordered her drink at Starbucks. So she'd go in, and instead of ordering a grande white mocha, she was ordering a grande drip coffee with 4 pumps of white mocha sauce, as per my recommendation. I told her, just do this for a week. We'll talk about it at the end of the week and see how it went. So at the end of that week, we did all her measurements and we sat down to talk, and she had lost 2 pounds. And she said, it was easy because it didn't disrupt my routine. The drink tastes almost the same. It was close enough to be tolerable. And she said, but I felt really energetic this week. I felt really good. And obviously I lost 2 pounds. And so then I explained to her that the Grande White Mocha was a 650 calorie drink with, and she got a quad shot, by the way. So it was a 650 calorie drink because of all the milk and sauces and everything that went in it. And it had less than 200 calories, or 200 grams of caffeine at 650 calories. And when we switched over to the Grande drip coffee with the 4 pumps of white mocha sauce, the taste was similar enough to be passable, only she cut the calories down to 200 for 4 pumps of white mocha sauce. The drip coffee was negligible. And so that was it for calories. And the caffeine content went up to about 260 grams. So she had an increase of 25% on the caffeine, and she had a decrease of over 60% of the calories. And the thing is that 450 calories averaged out over 7 days is almost a full pound of body fat lost. Plus, by feeling better from having less calories and just a less heavy drink in general, she was more active and she burned more calories, ultimately leading to a 2 pound total loss at the end of that week. So, simple change. We didn't change anything about her diet at all. We just changed the way she ordered her coffee. And that made a big, measurable difference. Another example I wanted to talk about was I had a lady that came in. She says, I've tried every single diet and I'm not losing weight. She says, I've cut back to only eating once a day. I skip breakfast, I skip lunch, I have a cup of drip coffee in the morning, and I have dinner, and that's it, and I'm gaining weight. And I don't understand why. And so I said, well, what are you having for dinner? And she said, well, Jack in the Box is on the way home. So I get the Bacon Ultimate Cheeseburger meal. I figure it's the only meal of the day I'm having, so it should be okay. And so I pulled up the Jack in the Box website and their nutrition right there on the spot to show her. And I calculated her daily calorie needs. And her daily calorie needs for maintenance, to not gain or lose any weight, were 1,650 calories a day. She was a 5'3" tall, slightly overweight, middle-aged woman with an office job. And I pulled up the nutrition for that Jack in the Box meal, and that one meal alone, even with a diet soda which has no calories, was almost 3,000. So she was consuming twice her daily calorie needs in a single meal, which meant immediately right there she was putting on body fat. And the people that like fasting are not going to want to hear this, but by having her fast all day, skipping breakfast and lunch, she stayed in a dietary ketosis and was killing her metabolism. Your metabolism runs on blood sugar. Now, when it comes to carbs, there are carbs that are longer burning, and those are probably better for most of you, unless you're an athlete and you need quick carbs in your bloodstream. And we refer to those as low glycemic. And then there are high glycemic carbs. Those are your sugary foods. And when you consume a high glycemic carbohydrate, you immediately have that blood sugar available to you. And if you don't use it, you store it as fat. And it can spike your insulin levels. So it's better to go with the low glycemic carbohydrates if you're not going to be extremely active at the time that you're eating or shortly after, because those take time to break down in your body and kind of trickle in, giving you energy in a more stable way. They trickle in and then they fade off, and so your blood sugar stays a lot more stable that way. And so carbs are not bad for you. There's just certain carbs that are better for certain situations. And when you're dieting and you aren't super active, or it's not an active part of your day, the lower glycemic carbs are going to be better for you. So anyways, obviously we made adjustments to her diet, you know, when she realized she was eating twice as many calories as she was supposed to in any given day. That explained why she was gaining weight. And you know, we figured out the proper number of calories, put it a little bit below her daily calorie needs, so she would start out in a deficit. We divided up those calories throughout the day, so she was eating about every 3 to 4 hours, keeping her blood sugar stable and ultimately optimizing her metabolism. And she immediately started to lose weight. In the past, just for those of you that are curious, because if you didn't see my first video, I have a neuromuscular disease. It's inherited. It attacks my immune system. It's autoimmune. And I spent about 2 years being mostly bedridden. So I myself, having not been active, am about 95 pounds overweight. And so part of what I'm doing on this channel is covering weight loss. I used to be a weight management specialist. And so I'm going through my own weight loss, you know, return back to athletic shape journey. And we're going to cover some of that. We're going to talk about nutrition, training, and so forth. If this is your first time seeing any of my videos, I'm currently sitting on a road bicycle on an indoor trainer. That's why I'm rocking. So, you know, I guess a good starting piece of advice for people is take a look at what you are eating and drinking. If it goes in your mouth, you need to know what it is. And if you want to not just crash diet, but actually lose weight long term, then you need to look at how you can eat sustainably, how you can change your diet in permanent ways. And so start looking at, like, what am I putting in my body, and what alternatives are there that, you know, will be better for me. And don't try to do it all in a day. Most people, you know, they try to go from what they were eating yesterday to something completely different today. You're going to fail. So it's better to make 1 or 2 changes at a time. You know, make a change, stick with it for a week, make another change. Small, reasonable, attainable goals, right? Smart goals. And the other thing with that too that never gets talked about, I feel, I've never heard anybody talk about it, is when we talk about training, we talk about the FIT principles and how once you plateau, you got to change something, right? And so if you go all in right out the gate and you go from, you know, no exercise to trying to exercise every day besides burning out and overtraining, where are you going to go from there? Exercise more hours, exercise more intensely. You've used up all your days. You can't add days, right? And so that's generally frowned upon. Well, with calories and with nutrition in general, if you make one change that starts your weight loss journey and you're losing a pound or 2 a week, that's adequate. You don't want to kill your liver by processing too much body fat. You can actually pickle your liver from yo-yo dieting just like you can from drinking. So if you make a small change and you start losing weight, and then you make another small change, you got room. You can make more changes. If you jump on some perfect diet right out the gate and try to stick with it when you plateau, what are you going to do? You change your fitness or start supplements. But then once you do those 2 things, what are you going to do? Small changes over time will ultimately make it easier and yield better results. So take it from me, I've been doing it for, I started in 1996 at a North Idaho Fitness. I worked for 24 Hour Fitness. I worked for Powerhouse Gym. I was a sponsored athlete in cycling and expedition racing. I'm a therapist, manual therapist, and a movement specialist. And I've had 3 different national credentials in nutrition, as well as supplementation. And you know, if that doesn't do it for you, if I'm not the right guy, go try a fad diet, crash diet. When it doesn't work, or it does work temporarily, and you yo-yo back, come listen to this again and try to implement These small changes that I'm talking about. I've helped people lose as much as 180 pounds. Helped a 360-pound man lose 180 pounds. I helped a 365-pound man lose 60 pounds in 6 months. Wish he had stayed with it, but apparently he was happy with that. So I do know what I'm talking about, and this is the best way to start. Now, as far as simple tips, when you go grocery shopping, try to stay around the outskirts of the store, right? If you go in, most grocery stores are going to have produce, bakery, meat, and dairy around the outside of the store. Most of the stuff in the middle of the store is going to be your highly processed, boxed convenience foods. And let's call them what they are. Food-like products, most of them, right? Like macaroni and cheese doesn't have any cheese in it. There might be a better brand that has powdered actual cheese, but most of that stuff is high calorie, low nutrient, whereas fruits and vegetables and lean meats are lower calorie and high nutrient. And you know, I'll say there's no way to get 100% of your ideal nutrients just from food, not unless you're a completely obsessed individual that's going to sit down and calculate and make it your full-time job. So supplements do make things a little bit easier, and they're not all made the same. I'll cover that in a different video, but for now, you know, take a look at what you're putting in your body. Just make a small change, one small change at a time, one per week. And we'll continue this subject. I mean, I guess a final closing thought, something somebody said today was, you know, I've already said, don't worry about fad diets, don't try to cut out whole macronutrients. But somebody did ask me today, they said, how come people in Italy aren't fat like Americans? Because they eat pasta all day long, all the time. And so, you know, it's an easy one, right? In Italy, you get a huge salad, lots of vegetables and stuff on the side. Even when it's a multi-course meal, you got a lean protein, you got lots of veggies or side salads or grilled tomatoes or whatever. And when you get the pasta, it's a small controlled portion, proper portion. And in America, we don't do that, right? When you go to a restaurant and order pasta, you get a small side salad, almost like appetizer size. And then you get a huge bowl of pasta that's really probably 5 or 6 servings worth. You know, I won't name restaurants, but there's one of them that gives you endless breadsticks, and you can order a small side salad to go with those breadsticks, and then they bring you a plate of pasta that would feed a party of 5. But that's meant for you. And that is just massive overkill. Not to mention, even if you were having a proper serving size of that pasta, that's been soaked in oil and butter and all kinds of stuff. So even a proper serving size would be far more calorie dense than a serving of pasta in Italy. I promise you that. But anyways, start with the basics. Start cleaning up your diet one step at a time. Look at some of the things that you're eating. Determine where you can make small changes. Make one small change a week. And then tune back in, and I'll start giving you more example changes that you can make and talk about how to optimize your metabolism and your nutrition and how you can use supplements to make that even better. So we'll end that here tonight. If you're just seeing this for the first time, or my channel for the first time, and you want to hear more about how to optimize the nutrition or the training, or you want to learn how to treat repetitive stress injuries or acute injuries, or just go from couch to athlete, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this with your friends. Ultimately, what I'd like to do is grow this channel big enough that I can do treatments on people, therapy treatments, that normally wouldn't be able to afford them, either because you know, they don't have insurance, or their insurance only gave them 6 treatments to fix, you know, some major issue it's just not going to cover it. And You know, if we can get this channel to enough viewership that I can make money off this channel itself, then I can help a whole lot of people at no charge. And one of the things I will be doing is actually doing treatments on video so that you can learn how to do self-treatments at home, or if you're a practitioner, learn some additional skills that you don't already have, tips and tricks. I've been doing this for a long time. I treat all kinds of stuff from thoracic outlet syndrome to carpal tunnel to plantar fasciitis, knee problems, back problems, you name it. So tune in. See you next time. Namaste.